Goddamn. The perks of being a teenager. G'day guys, how are you going? Today we are going to be having a look at the M4 Improved. Now you may have noticed a couple of videos ago I made a video on the Australian server that's coming, and I said that here is a free M4 Improved code. Now although I thought that everyone could use the code, unfortunately it was a one-time use only. There were some emblem codes there as well, so I think it's still going until, that sounded really New Zealand. I think it's still going until the end of December, so you might as well pick up those codes if you're on the Asian server. But a few people have picked these up, and I've obviously picked one up myself because what the hell, why not? I'll just use the code. So here it is, guys. Here's the M4 Improved. Today I'm going to give you all my thoughts on it. I'm going to go through the history of the tank, go through the top 3 and the bottom 3 quirks of the tank, move over into the brand score, and then give you my final thoughts after some Ace Tanker replay. And guys, if you are on the Asia server and are looking for a clan, I have just created my own clan just for fun, because why not? It's got my face on it. It says I love diabetes. I am a type 1 diabetic, if you didn't know. So yeah, look, it's a bit of fun, a bit of a meme, a bit of a gag. You can join if you want. Just send an application through. At this point, anyone's being accepted, so why not? So without further ado, let's get on to the history of the tank. So it is a variant of the M4 medium tank. Of course, it's called the M4 Improved, and as the name suggests, it has an angled hull and turret armor, meaning that its armor was overall improved and just the tank in general was improved. So it was developed by the Detroit Arsenal in August of 1942, and the changes were intended to improve the tank's protection without increasing weight or degrading other technical characteristics. And of course, it only existed in blueprints. So effectively, guys, it was using the pretty much the exact same armor, just putting it out differently in terms of spacing it out differently, so it would be more angled and effective, and in general just a more effective tank. So now moving on to the top 3 quirks of the tank. It is very, very fast and maneuverable, and it can keep up with light tanks really easily as well, guys. And although it doesn't have necessarily impressive hard stats, its soft stats I think are pretty damn good and allows it to be able to do this, and I'll get onto that soon, of course. Now it also has better armor and also module and crew protection than the standard M4, with a good view range for scouting enemy tanks, at least for its tier anyway. Now the bottom 3 quirks of the tank are that it has very, very poor penetration with its standard rounds, meaning premium rounds are very much something you are going to have to use in this tank if you want to be effective in battle. And also the gun is quite inaccurate, although it is still more accurate than the same gun mounted on the regular M4 Sherman at tier 5, which is quite interesting. And also the armor, of course, is better than on the Sherman, but it's still not incredible and must be angled, and even when it's angled won't necessarily hold up to enemy firepower, especially since in my experience I don't think I've ever gotten into a tier 5 game with this tank. It's always been tier 6, tier 7, and those tanks will often, if not always, have enough penetration to go straight through the tank like butter. Onto the brand score now, guys. The DPM of this tank is 1650 damage points per minute, giving it a 5 out of 10. Penetration wise, the penetration of this tank is only 92 millimeters, giving it a 3 out of 10. Gun handling wise, the shown dispersion value of the tank is 0.44, giving it a 3 out of 5, while the hidden dispersion value average of this tank is 0.1467, giving it a 4 out of 5. Aiming time wise, the aiming time of this tank is a pretty good 2.1 seconds, giving it an 8 out of 10. Gun vertical movement wise, or the gun depression and elevation angles, the gun depression of this tank is 10 degrees, giving it a 3 out of 5, while the gun elevation is pretty good at 25 degrees, which is, yeah, pretty good for one of these kind of tanks, giving it a 3 out of 5. Now, survivability of this tank is quite interesting. Let's go over to the armor schematic viewer, and I'll tell you exactly why. It's quite interesting. So taking a look here, guys, and I'm sorry I'm looking over at the other monitor here, you can see that the armor actually isn't that great. It's about 75 millimeters on the upper hull. It's got a bit of an odd area here, which gives it pretty insane armor values in some places as well. But in general, it's not that great. In fact, it's very, very similar to the T-34, almost identical, guys. It does get a bit more effective armor on the side here, and it can get some pretty good values here in auto ricochets. But on terms of the front, it's pretty much the same as a T-34 at tier 5, of course, the Russian tier 5 medium tank. So do keep that in mind. It's not like improved to exponentially better than the standard M4. It's pretty good, but not amazing. And also an odd fact is that the rear armor is more, it has more rear armor than it does side armor in general, which is quite interesting. But yeah, guys, don't expect to bounce too much from the front. Even if you angle really well, you're still going to get about 80 millimeters here. It's just not that amazing, especially since, as I said, I've never gotten into a tier 5 only game, or tier 5 and less in this tank. So I've never been able to bully lower tier tanks. I'm sure you can, but it's just, it doesn't seem to be something this matchmaker of the tank gets into very often. Having said that, the turret of this tank is actually quite good. It ranges from about 80 millimeters to pretty much auto ricochet. So I like to go hull down in this tank with the 10 degrees of gun depression, which is pretty much all round apart from these two little nodules down the back here for some reason, I'm not sure why. But if you can use the gun depression, then that makes the effective hull armor a lot better. But also if you can go hull down, then it can mean that this tank has very, very effective armor indeed. Having said that, because its armor is pretty much the same as the T-34, it's not that effective, guys. And so overall, I'm giving this tank a 6 out of 10 for survivability. Now, mobility wise, the power to weight ratio of this tank is 16.88, giving it a 3 out of 5, while the average traverse speed of this tank is 39 degrees per second, giving it another 3 out of 5. View range wise, the view range of this tank is 370 meters, which is not bad for a tier 5 tank in general, so that gives it an 8 out of 10. Concealment while stationary, or its camouflage value whilst not moving or firing the gun, is 11%, which is pretty poor, giving it a 5 out of 10. And value wise, I mean, this is a fun little tank, don't get me wrong, but it's not overpowered in any way. The penetration is a major issue I found in this tank, and I've been firing so many premium rounds, which I don't like to do because I want to save my credits, but it's so necessary in this tank because 92 millimeters of penetration just really isn't enough at all. However, it is a collector's tank. I mean, that's its kind of purpose. This is something that's going to just sit around in your garage and you probably won't play very often unless you really like it, but most people are just going to leave it in their garage in general. So if you want to have something that's going to increase your WN8, or you want something that's going to give you credits, don't go with this tank. It's just not good enough. Having said that, I'm going to give this tank a 6 out of 10 for value because I still believe it is rather valuable, but you don't need it over any other tank. It's pretty average, and the playstyle is medium to okay kind of fun. So overall, guys, the final brand score for this tank is 60 out of 100, which is actually not too bad at all. As I said, it's not overpowered, but it's not underpowered by any means either, except for that penetration. That is a little bit underpowered. Too much rambling on, let's get into some Ace Tanker gameplay. I personally haven't been able to get my own Ace Tanker gameplay in this. I've been keep getting Mastery 1s or whatever, but I find it so hard in this tank because of that damn penetration, but hopefully this replay will show you that it is possible to get a Mastery badge in this tank. So here we are on Lakeville. We have Royd Hogan playing in, of course, his M4 Improved. I mean, have a look at the M4 Improved. Oh, and in terms of how it looks compared to the M4 Sherman that you can see behind him there, you can see that really all they've done is they've pretty much flattened the upper hull and just changed around the look of the turret. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same tank. Now, Royd Hogan here has 3 marks of excellence on his tank, so on his gun barrel I mean, so you know he's going to be a pretty good player in general. He is firing purely APCR rounds now, although I don't implore you to do that because it's very expensive. It is almost necessary on this tank, and I find that when I go into a game that is what I really need. It looks like he's using binocs here because his view range is full. A good setup, I think, in terms of, I think it's called, what was it, equipment, is a gun rammer, vents, and also coded optics, because you can really push up that view range and make it a lot better. His aiming time on this tank is, of course, 2.2 seconds, but you can see the accuracy there as well is pretty poor. He's not leading his shots very high, of course, because he's using APCR rounds, so he doesn't really need to. But yeah, he is a pretty good player, and you'll see by this replay why. He's also, if you're wondering what that B thing is next to his name, I believe that means he's played 2 campaigns of the ranked battles. Now, why the tog looks so weird is because a while ago I installed a package to make it look like Game of Thrones so I can make a video on it, and I forgot to remove it, and that's why it looks like a dragon. So my apologies to everyone out there. I really should have deleted it before I started recording this. I just completely forgot all about it, so I guess we're gonna have to look at a tog that looks like a dragon. But when it was going past, I was like, what the hell is that tank? It's just a tog with a few scales on it. Never mind that. So far he's done 1,297 damage. He completely picked apart that tog. It didn't... Oh no, there's 2 togs in a tog platoon, of course. So we're probably going to see another dragon on the field very, very soon. But he did pick apart that tog. He's done 1,297 damage already, and it's only been just over 2 minutes or 3 minutes. 2 minutes. So yeah, he's doing pretty well so far, and he's only got to do better. Now, I couldn't find an amazing replay of this tank because there was nothing too spectacular out there. And again, I would have used my own, except I've been struggling to play like with a mastery badge ace tanker. I'm getting a lot of first class and whatever, and they're not very hard to get, especially if you're using some premium rounds. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something about this tank is like, to me, like, would I go out and get it? No, I just like wouldn't go out of my way to get it. Of course, I got it for free, and also my apologies if I led you on to believe that I could give it to you, because I genuinely thought I could give it to you guys, but I couldn't. Some people did say that if you like wait a little bit, it would work for them. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, it's not too bad at all. My apologies, guys. I just had a delivery at my home. But anyway, picks apart the archer. I have no idea where I left off from, to be honest. This game is pretty quick. I think I was going on about how I wouldn't go out of my way to buy it, and that's definitely true. I just wouldn't. You can see it's like it's not necessarily like really engaging kind of tank to play. I mean, I guess what tank is, but yeah, I mean, like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, but yeah, is it better than any other tier 5 premium? Absolutely not. And if you were looking for a tier 5 premium, I would definitely try and go for something that, you know, could at least, you know, fire rounds without having to fire premium rounds. I mean, you don't have to, of course, but you will struggle against a lot of the tanks you come across. For example, this Stuck 3, if you try to shoot him with the standard rounds, you probably won't go through half the time. Here he's just getting absolutely wrecked by artillery. That FV 304, of course, is a very nasty tank destroyer. I mean, artillery. But, you know, anyway, that's the end of the game, guys. He's done 2,343 damage, 614 assistance damage. Really hasn't had to do much. Of course, he's been firing premium rounds. Keep that in mind. He is a very good player, though. I'm not going to let the premium rounds take away from the fact he's not a good player, because he is. He's a very good player. He's clearly got this tank loaded up. He clearly likes it a lot because he's got 3 marks of excellence on it. But let's just have a look at his stats and see just how well he did, I suppose. So we can see he's got a mastery badge ace tanker, a bruiser medal, a fire for effect medal, a high caliber medal, and a tanker sniper medal. Interestingly, actually, he did a lot of his damage from over 300 meters, and as we know, this tank is very inaccurate. Of course, this came from hitting the top 2, and that is a massive target. Yeah, pretty amazing achievement considering that how inaccurate this gun is, in my opinion, anyway. And overall, of course, he did the highest amount of damage on his team. Not too surprising considering he was in a tier 5 or tier 6 game, I should say. And as you can see, he was in a tier 6 game. I really have not, I promise you guys, I have not ever gotten into a tier 5 game in this tank, and it's so frustrating because I can't bully little tanks. But yeah, the highest damage by far, beat the heavy tanks on his team, and he got quite a lot of base experience as well. 1,442 base experience. That's pretty damn massive. But I guess it goes to show that to be able to get experience on this tank isn't actually too difficult, all things considered, because you know, he barely did he barely like played, you know, I mean, like he played pretty aggressively, but he didn't play outstandingly or in any way, you know, amazingly. He just had, I think it was just pretty lucky in my opinion anyway. But anyway, very well done to you, mate. I mean, you clearly like the tank a lot, so there's not much more I can really say about it. Let's go back to the garage and I'll give you my final thoughts on this tank, although I'm sure you guys can already tell what I'm gonna say. So guys, what are my final thoughts on this tank? Should you get it, and is it worth the gold? Well, if you are looking for a collector's item, then for sure. If you collect medium tanks, for sure. If you want a crew trainer, even, for sure. It's got 5 crew training slots. Having said that, I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't go out of your way to buy it. I wouldn't buy it in like a $150 package. It's just not worth it. It's not good enough. Don't expect good armor. Expect pretty average armor. Don't expect a good gun, that's for sure. Neither are there. It just feels like a general upgrade to the M4, unless of course the M4 is using that 100mm or whatever derp 105mm derp gun, because that would make this tank a lot better. In general, it's just, yeah, is it worth the gold? Not really. But anyway guys, thank you so very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please do consider leaving it a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe if you're new, why not? And I'll catch you next time.